guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle and I am the owner of Damn Fancy Creations. If you guys are new to my channel, I do want to let you know that there are two other places you can catch my content. I have a large tutorial group on Facebook, as well as a smaller, more personalized patron group where I offer free files, exclusive discounts, and group challenges each month. For today's tutorial, I am pretty excited to share this with you guys. It is a V-split tumbler with cardstock. I have not really done a whole lot of V-split tumblers. I think the last one I did was over a year ago. They're just not something that I really sold a lot of, but now that my Etsy is on vacation, I could really kind of try some techniques that I've really wanted to. And I saw this cardstock paper at Hobby Lobby and really wanted to get it on a tumbler. So I figured a V-split tumbler would be a good way to utilize this cardstock. And I know that some of you guys are intimidated by cardstock, so I will kind of share some tips and tricks with you that I learned or may have encountered along the way, so you guys can be a little bit more encouraged to use cardstock on your tumblers. So if you guys are ready to see how I created this classy fall V-split tumbler, let's get started. Alright guys, so this is the scrapbook paper we're going to use. I saw it at Hobby Lobby and had to get it on a cup. This is the first time I'm actually using scrapbook paper on a tumbler, but I figured that there's always a time to try something new. So basically what I'm doing is deciding how deep I want the V on my tumbler to go. And you can wrap it around your tumbler and see where you want the backs to meet up. I did not want my back to be this far down, so I just scooted the paper up a little bit. This is a 30-ounce straight. It is a strip tumbler that I decided to make pretty. It's one of my old ones that I got tired of, so I just wanted to make myself something new. So once I decide how far down I want my V to go, I am going to mark on the paper where I want my line to be. And I should have brought my paper cutter downstairs, but I didn't feel like running upstairs to grab it just to cut this one sheet of paper. So I just grabbed my other piece of scrapbook paper, say that 5 times fast, and just kind of drew a straight line. And then I just cut this with my scissors, and it does not have to be perfect. You'll see me, I did end up cutting it a little bit more to get it to fit the shape that I wanted a little better. So it does not have to be perfect the first time you cut it out. It's just paper. So mine was wrapped a little further than I wanted. So again, I just traced around the top edge and cut that out. And then you'll also see that the back was crossing a little bit more than I would like it to. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of frame. But the back was overlapping a lot and I did not like that. So one of the sides I noticed was a little bit longer than the other. So I did just go and cut that side a little bit more. And this is the 20-ounce Ozark Trail. You'll see I just did the exact same thing for this tumbler.
This one I did kind of roll along there, so I got a better cut the first time. And this scrapbook paper I am going to save and use for something later. But this cut did match up pretty well on my first try, so I was pretty happy about that. This one I was trying to decide how to get it to match up like that cut. So this is where I went and cut one side a little bit. So now the triangle was more of a triangle shape. It was more even on both sides, and I got it to match up pretty good in the back. Now, obviously, if you want yours to cross over more, you can definitely do that. I personally don't think that there's a right or wrong way how to do these. You know, it's kind of up to your discretion how much of the print you want on your cup. So once we have our shape cut out how we want it, we are going to put Mod Podge all on the back of our scrapbook paper. For those of you that watch me often, I hardly ever use Mod Podge. You will hear me talk about how much I dislike it, but I'm not sure that there is another option to get the scrapbook paper to stick to the tumbler, but also not cause the scrapbook paper to soak up the liquid or the adhesive. Some adhesives can soak up in the paper and cause wet spots on the paper, and we definitely do not want that. So I know Mod Podge is something that works, so I just decided to use it no matter how much I was cursing at it the entire time. So once you have your paper on your tumbler, just smooth it out, make sure everything is pressed down really well. You don't want any air bubbles or huge globs of Mod Podge underneath the scrapbook paper, because then it will take forever to dry, and we don't want that either. So I am just kind of pressing that Mod Podge up through the paper and wiping it away when it gets to the top. I also got a rubber band and wrapped it around the top rim of my tumbler, and this held that paper in place as the Mod Podge dried. Since the Ozark Trail cups have a slight curve to them, the paper was not sitting as flush against the tumbler as if this were a, you know, skinny straight tumbler or another one that's straight and does not have a curve. So this rubber band just helped kind of hold that paper in place once the while the Mod Podge dried. So for the 30 skinny, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to Mod Podge the entire paper. You don't want it too thick, but you don't want it thin either. You want a decent amount on the paper. And I am just going to start in the middle and then wrap the edges around. And the Mod Podge does help if you need to kind of move the paper around a little bit until you get it in place. You're not going to be able to move it as well as water slide or something like that, but it does have a little give to it. So you can slide it up a little or slide it down a little. And I did go grab a rubber band for this tumbler as well. It just helped kind of hold that paper in place and helped the Mod Podge hold that paper to the tumbler as it dried. And we're doing the same thing. Definitely smooth out that paper, smooth any bumps out from underneath it. We don't want air bubbles or Mod Podge clumps or anything like that. And once this layer is dried, we are going to remove the rubber band, and we are just going to cover the entire thing in Mod Podge, basically. If you guys have done fabric tumblers, which is another tumbler that I have not done, you know that you need to seal it several times so the fabric does not soak up any of that epoxy and cause wet spots. Well, you're going to have to do the same thing for paper. If there are any spots that are left unsealed, then the paper can soak up the Mod Podge and cause slick spots or wet looking spots on the paper. So I think I sealed mine probably 4 times, I believe. I would rather do 1 too many than 1 not enough. And at this point, I did get my blade and trim the excess paper off of this tumbler. Looking back now, I should have waited until the Mod Podge was completely dry to do this. I would have gotten a cleaner cut, I think. And my blade was also not very new. So next time I do this, I will definitely make sure my blade is really good and the Mod Podge is dry so that I don't get jagged edges. I did go back and kind of just trim around probably about 4 millimeters from the top, because you don't want that scrapbook paper right next to the edge, because if, you know, it's right next to the edge of the tumbler, it's not going to get covered good in epoxy, and then water could seep in between those layers and, you know, cause a seal to break or the scrapbook paper to soak up water or epoxy, and we definitely do not want that. We want to make sure that there is enough room to make sure that that paper is sealed completely to that tumbler before we epoxy. So this one was trimmed a little bit too much on one side, but again, this tumbler was just for me. So I did everything with the 30 ounce first, just so I knew what not to do for the 20 ounce, which was going to somebody. So I'm just sealing everything in really good. You can see that I am bringing this up to the edge to make sure that even the edge of the paper is sealed in really good. And even when you're sealing, you don't want your coats to be super, super thick, because then it will just take longer to dry. You may get ripples on there, and we just want it to be smooth, but good coverage. And this is sped up a little bit, so each layer does have a little bit of time to dry in between. It's not 100% dry, but it is dry enough to apply another coat. So once this Mod Podge has had quite a while to dry, we are ready to do our next step. So we are taking painter's tape and we're just going to apply it directly next to the paper. And I'm just going to trim this with some scissors about the same width as the tape. And then we're going to do the other side. And we want this tape to be pretty even. I made it a little bit more perfect than it had to be, but you know, you're going to be glittering this and then going back and adding some stripes. So I didn't really need to trim this with my blade, but just showing you guys if y'all want to do it. So there's our first V, and then we're going to do the same thing with our second tumbler. And this one did go past the bottom of the tumbler a little bit, but I actually do like how this ended up looking. But again, it's really just preference, however you want your tumbler to look. Obviously, if you're using a shorter tumbler, then the V may be more of the cup versus a tall tumbler. So this color is Pumpkin Spice Martini from the Drunk Flamingo. And we're going to use some Rustoleum 2x clear to apply our glitter. I personally like to use the gloss to apply the glitter because it takes longer to dry than the matte. Sometimes with the matte sealer, it dries super quickly and I have to spray and glitter multiple times to get good coverage. So right now I am just spraying all over the white part of the tumbler where we want our glitter to be. And then we're going to come back and sprinkle that glitter all over the part that we just sprayed. I usually do my bottoms first and then kind of work my way around the rest of the tumbler. And this particular glitter is a champagne mixed in with opal. So I did do 2 coats just to get really good coverage. And we're going to do the same thing with the 30 ounce. So I'm basically spraying really good with the clear spray. And then I'm going to bring the tumbler back in and sprinkle the glitter all over the part that I just sprayed. So I did this twice just to get good coverage. And then I sealed it really well with the same clear spray. So this is after 2 coats of that glitter and sealed with clear spray. Now we're going to remove the painter's tape and apply our center glitter color or center color with Mod Podge. Sometimes I use acrylic paint to apply my glitter. Sometimes I use Quick Coat from CC DIY, but I just decided to continue to use Mod Podge since I had it sitting down here. And y'all, this glitter color makes me think of crushed graham crackers. Every time I see it, it just reminds me of graham crackers. I don't know. So I usually try to use a paintbrush that is the same width as my stripes. That way I can just kind of run my paintbrush down the stripe and get good coverage with the Mod Podge. And since Mod Podge does have a tendency to dry kind of quickly in some spots, I am going to do one side at a time. So I'm basically just going to Mod Podge one side of the stripe, then sprinkle my glitter, and then go back and do the other side. And the white that I'm using is Coconut Snowball Martini from the Drunk Flamingo. So now we're going to do our other side. And for this white, I did not need to do a second coat since the underneath color is white. If a little bit of white showed through, it would be the same color as the glitter. If I was using a darker color, then I probably would need to do a second coat, especially since I'm using Mod Podge. So now we're going to do the 30 ounce. Now, if this tumbler was actually for somebody and not me, I would probably go and touch up those darker spots with some white acrylic paint before I glittered. Like I said, this was just an old strip cup that I had that I just wanted to kind of redo for myself. I do think that I did 2 coats of glitter for this stripe, just so I didn't see those little darker spots underneath my glitter. And there we go. So once this Mod Podge dries, I went over everything with Mod Podge just to make sure it was sealed really well, and then epoxied 2 times. So once the epoxy has cured, I sanded my top rims really good and bottoms if we needed to, and then it was ready for the pinstripe lines and some fun decorations for the back. So basically what you're going to do is take your vinyl strips and just follow the lines of the cardstock paper and glitter. I want to say I made my black lines probably about 0.07. That's typically how wide I make my thicker lines. My thinner lines are usually about 0.035. But if you want yours thicker, you can definitely do them thicker. If you want them thinner, you can do that as well. I typically print up about 4 or 5 inches worth of lines, just so I have them on hand and don't have to jump on my Cameo and just to print some lines out. So I am just cutting this vinyl to where the points of the V match up really well. Typically I get a good cut with my blade. This blade was super old and I should have changed it before I started doing this, but live and learn. See, it should not take this long just to cut a piece of vinyl with a blade. So now that we have our black vinyl on there, I'm going to go in with some thinner rosy gold stripes. I ended up not liking I wanted to use the texture gold, but it was a little bit thicker than I wanted them. So I just used some nail tape. The nail tape is pretty much the same thickness as I would typically make my thinner lines, which is about 0.35. The nail tape may be slightly thinner. If you guys do not have nail tape, I suggest getting it because it's super easy to use. It has tons of colors. I just bought a big pack from Amazon. You don't have to cut tiny little lines out. And I've been using these a lot for my stripes. So we're just going right in the middle of these black lines and then matching it up with the opposite side. And then I just kind of went back around and made sure all my points matched up really good. So now that we have our stripes on, I decided to add something to the back. You know, I just thought that the front was so pretty and had all these pumpkins and colors. And then the opposite side did not really have a whole lot of the pattern. It had the glitter, which was pretty, but I had all these pumpkins from another cup that I was doing. I think it was the Dusty Floral Pumpkin. I had all these pumpkins left over. So I just decided to add a couple to the opposite side. So for my cup, I just decided to do 2 white pumpkins. For the 20-ounce Ozark Trail, I did a white and an orange pumpkin, and I actually think I like that better. But they both still turned out really cute. So I pretty much just layered the flowers and the pumpkins. I did not press them down 100% just in case I needed to move some stuff around. I could lift it a little bit easier if half of it was not pressed down. And once you have your pumpkins on there, I sealed everything with Quick Coat just to make sure everything was down really well. And then added my final couple layers of epoxy. If you want to add your name, you can definitely do that now. But that is pretty much it for this tutorial. Here are some finished pictures for you guys. I really loved how these tumblers turned out, and I cannot wait to see your take on these tumblers. Please post them in the tutorial group if you decide to try one out. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Patreon group. Thanks for watching.